Reginald had been deep in the Underhive for 4 months. He'd long since been written off as MIA when he hadn't come back from the mission that had taken him there. All that time in the darkness, alone, hunting, being hunted. It had changed him, but the ember of his faith had endured. One day, a team of rejects was sent on an exploratory mission deep into the Hive. They'd been surrounded there, cut off from even communications, but Reginald had been there in the shadows. When the moment was right, he struck and routed the heretics. After that, all he had to do to earn his place back in the Inquisition was offer up the dog tags of his quarries, the skulls he dedicated to the Emperor. Reginald here. It's good to be back. Darktide still has the best moment-to-moment combat I've ever experienced, so it's nice to have some new toys to experiment with. As of the release of Secrets of the Machine God, ever since this game came out, I've wanted a bolt pistol, and now we have one. It's quite iconic after all. But is it any good? How does it stack up against other options? I've been working hard to find out for you, and I'll have those answers for you by the end of this video. As ever, I have put a roadmap below and a nifty tracker on the bottom right, along with careful timestamping. Purpose in kit. The bolt pistol is a quick draw specialist and light elite sniping tool. This pocket rocket launcher also does double duty as an effective area stagger device. Basics. The bolt pistol has the following stats table. Additionally, it has access to the following blessings. We'll get into this a bit more in the build guide, but that's the fundamentals for you. Additionally, it has 3 types of attack: Hipfire, ADS, and Special Bash. Finally, here are some key details you need to know about as we go forwards. The bolt pistol fires 2-stage rocket-propelled mass-reactive bolts, which have a short 5-meter priming distance after leaving the barrel, and then will detonate on or in anything they hit. If they hit any targets before that priming distance, they will not detonate. The explosion radius from this detonation will stagger and terrify enemies. When hitting terrain, the explosion deals no damage to nearby foes. However, when detonating inside your enemies, it will send heretic shrapnel sailing into other nearby foes, dealing minor damage. In addition to these stagger effects, the bolt pistol has a very high suppression radius and effect, which often results in smarter enemies ducking for cover or retreating to new positions. While both of these effects can be somewhat disruptive to clean sequential kills, they can serve to buy space and time for more careful aiming and safety for your friendlies. The bolt pistol has inverse damage fall off. In my testing, this means it deals with this pistol 544 damage at 10 meters for a body shot on a direct shotgunner and 587 damage at 28 meters. It's not an enormous modifier, but it does mean you get some extra damage for making those long-range shots. Let's talk about using the weapon, starting with Hipfire. The Hipfire on the bolt pistol actually shines as weapons go. Its first shot is usually pretty accurate, and with certain talents it can even be improved. The reset time on follow-up shots is fairly long, but you can still make relatively accurate mid to short-range follow-up shots without waiting for the full reset. The big challenge with Hipfire is when firing more than 3 or so shots rapidly, the weapon really starts to climb and sway, resulting in low refire accuracy at any appreciable speed. If you time things well, you can actually fire the whole magazine roughly on target, but if you're maximizing for fire rate, I recommend only firing in short bursts or in tight corridors. The ADS, or right-click functionality, is the aim down sights function, and it has many of the same problems as the bolt gun at time of writing. It has instant sway, resulting in the ADS being frequently off target when first aimed. Though it is stable enough for government work once you reacquire your target, snap shooting from ADS will be risky business at longer ranges because of this. It also has that strange double reset recoil recovery jank. Though it seems less persistent in my games than usually happens when I'm firing the bolt gun, it is the same issue and it can be pretty ugly at times. Recovery with the ADS to target is noticeably faster than with the Hipfire, and the weapon is quite accurate at long ranges with patient shooting. Due to this improved recovery when trying to make follow-up shots quickly and at medium to longer ranges, I find it is more reliable to swap from Hipfire in the first shot to an ADS second shot than follow up with additional Hipfire. In general, the ADS is very precise at solid distances if you are not wiggling around while firing. I want to introduce you to a key concept when ADSing here, stutter stepping. The idea is very simple. As you move into your ADS from your Hipfire aim, stop moving. Allow your aim to settle on target, then fire. Then resume moving as your recoil recovers. This will allow you the best accuracy over range. This actually works for Hipfire as well, and is a technique I have generally used with the revolver for critical shots as well, but it is far more crucial with the generally poor handling bolt pistol. Just to show you what I mean, here's a side-by-side comparison of how long it takes your recoil to resettle for an accurate shot between the Zerona revolver and the bolt pistol. Special attack usage. The special attack is a bash that does hardly any damage. It does okay stagger. It's basically a single target shove. You can chain into a quick hipfire shot from it, and that looks cool, and there's no reason not to if you've bashed something and want it to die. But there's really no value here that you can't get by just swapping to melee. Speaking of swapping, here's how long it takes to swap to the bolt pistol and fire a single shot, whereas here is how long it takes to fire a revolver. Build guide. Let's get into how to build this thing for maximum effectiveness. As an elite and specialist sniper, the most important thing is being able to actually effectively pick off specialists and key elites. I've compiled a list of targets you'd likely use this weapon on, including a few atypical ones for reference, and broken up the shots to kill. You can see that here. Also included as a comparison point is my preferred Zealot revolver to my best rolled bolt pistol. All of this is on my Zealot. I recognize that the Zealot, Veteran, and Psyker are all going to experience somewhat different breakpoints depending on talents, but I've spent some time playing with and testing each, and I think I, so far, have isolated down the best choices to the best of my ability. Perks. As far as I can tell, the best two possible choices from the perspective of breakpoints are Flak and Maniac. Both will get you either to a 1-tap on headshot for some enemies or a 1 to 2-tap on body shot on some key targets. Sometimes this requires puncture to reach that 1-tap. Things like trappers and flamers and bombers are all potentially out of reach, even with a good roll, without Flak or Maniac, and in some cases puncture too. A middle distance body shot on a trapper only goes over the line with Maniac and puncture. Some acceptable inferior alternatives include Unyielding, Unarmored, and reload speed. Blessings. I'll start with the dumpster tier blessings. Glory Hunter was ruled out immediately as a low value option. Point Blank could have a place in a crit build, but I'm not sure it's better than Surgical. Execution, when tested, did not serve me well, netting about 100 extra damage on my vet on follow-up shots, but taking me over no interesting breakpoints, especially considering most breakpoints are within range of a 2-tap anyway. Deadly Accurate seems like it could be good, but in trying to get it on my weapon specialist vet, I did not find value even with its guaranteed critical hits. It just felt like I was either already one-shotting with other blessings and perks, or it didn't lead to a new breakpoint, so that's in the trash until someone tells me I'm wrong. Lethal Proximity is in the middle of the pack for me, specifically on Veteran running weapon specialist. You can kind of use it as pocket sand while doing the old quick draw to re-trigger your melee attack speed, but it's not safe enough to really gain value out of repeated shots and only serves to stagger enemies dealing little damage. This leaves puncture, run and gun, and surgical as our options at the top. Surgical is the choice to always take as it just increases crit chance while aiming, which you will often do and usually get a few stacks of. This just increases your average damage. Sometimes when you take your sweet time for a long shot, you'll have 10 stacks before you know it, and it guarantees a critical hit. The choice between run and gun and puncture is entirely between consistency and aggression in your playstyle. I prefer run and gun on my Zealot, as the hipfire accuracy while sprinting for the first shot, and if properly delayed with subsequent shots, is quite good, though at this time the extra damage is only triggered within 8 meters. This is apparently a bug, it's supposed to be 15. Alternatively, if you are looking for greater consistency, puncture is the way to go. Sure, it feels a little weird watching something bleed out instead of explode after being shot by a bolt weapon, but it clears breakpoints for 1-taps, such as against trappers when paired with maniacs, and a shot in the torso, or in some cases, Reaper torso shots. You'll also net the occasional surprise kill when wounding someone else's quarry that gets away, or a dog that was more wounded than expected. It's also handy for extending the range in which some breakpoints are met, as certain talents fall off due to range and other effects. Breakpoints. Please note for this table, I am generally firing at around 10 meters. This is because the fall off changes the breakpoints on the bolt pistol when Anoint in Blood is active, quite a bit at short ranges. With different talents, different breakpoints are going to show up. I do try to mention where bleed takes me over the line, and that can be with talents or without in some cases. I'm just going to leave these tables up for a second so you can take a screenshot, and then we're going to move on. Tips and tricks. I only have a couple of these because it's a gun, it's pretty simple. When firing the bolt pistol, the reset on draw and reset after firing is timed, but spread is not affected by movement from what I can tell. What I mean by this is when you start moving, there is a small change to your hipfire accuracy or even your ADS accuracy, but it doesn't grow or bloom as you move more and more to some like high level. It still remains fairly tight. While accuracy is never quite perfect, it is still quite tight when hip firing the first shot, and then it degrades rapidly based on additional shots and their timing. This does allow the player to snap fire on the fly for the first shot and subsequent shots after waiting long enough for the reset. As the bolt pistol has both high suppression and stagger on AoE, it can be quite handy to fire into dense crowds to knock them over and buy time, or fire near friendlies to protect them from dangerous situations or rescue them from dogs. One thing I did notice while doing my testing is that the slide does increase the hipfire reticle bloom over just sprinting, and this is where run and gun can give you an advantage in mobile firing. Alright, I think that's a sufficient wrap for the tutorial. I'm going to get into a balanced discussion here on my way out, and then we'll do the outro and all that jazz. I'm about to complain a whole bunch here, but real quick, the bolt pistol is fine. The problem is, it's worse than the revolver. If the revolver didn't exist, people would probably be very excited about it, but the revolver does exist. Personally, I intend to use the bolt pistol over the revolver for all my future games, even even though it is worse, because it's certainly good enough and I like it thematically. Comparing the bolt pistol to the revolver on paper, it looks like the bolt pistol is only a little worse, but it's really once you realize how much of this is at shorter ranges for the bolt pistol than the revolver, and how much of this requires bleed and no missed shots on a sluggish, chunky, high recoil weapon compared to the revolver's snappiness, or the fact that the revolver can punch through like 6 groaners or 3 shotgunners and kill all 3, but the bolt pistol can only kill a single enemy of any kind at a time, or compare that to the fact that the bolt pistol takes this long to shoot 5 targets in the head, while the revolver can do it in this time, and the revolver gets a bonus penetration kill on the range, or the abysmal dog kill stats. Infested is somehow awful on bolt guns for some reason. All these details really ruin the bolt pistol as a competitor for the top slot of specialist, making it feel pretty disappointing. It's the king of pistols, or it's supposed to be, but it's being absolutely outshone by a beat up old wheel gun. It just doesn't feel right, and I think it's a failure of weapon design. Let me try to just speak plainly on that point for a second without any flowery words. The bolt pistol is the iconic pistol of 40k. It shoots big bullet and it explodes inside of your adversaries, but when you shoot someone in the arm, they don't die with the bolt pistol, but they do with the revolver. The revolver is a revolver. I'm glad there's a fantasy for quick shotting, wheelgat, fun stuff. That's fine, I get it. But if we're gonna have a gun in the game that's gonna be as slow and sluggish to fire as the bolt pistol while still being a quick draw, precision weapon, whatever, then the bolt pistol should be the top weapon for simple kills on priority targets. It should be that simple. So yes, the revolver can keep its niche. I don't even care. Don't nerf it, whatever, just leave it alone. But buff the bolt pistol quite a bit. It needs to be stronger than the revolver by enough to matter. I'm gonna propose some fixes. Number 1, the bolt pistol should just do higher body shot damage to every enemy type and should suffer no penalty versus infested. This is definitely the starting point. I also think that the bolt pistol and the bolt guns should be some of the best weapons against soft targets. I'm talking unarmored enemies, maniacs, muties, which I know are maniacs, and unyielding enemies on body shots. Whereas the revolver, and yes, I know I'm technically proposing a nerf here, should be weak on body shot for unyielding targets and maniacs, but it should be strong against headshots on those same targets. That way, you really do have to connect headshots to get the kills. The bolt pistol should be the thing that you can use on body for effect, because when you hit someone with an exploding round, it's obviously going to do seriously insane damage. Let's just allow us not to worry about body hit zones when using a bolt. Shoot him in the leg, that's a kill. Shoot him in the arm, that's a kill. Instead, the revolver can shoot someone in the arm and take them out, but the bolter can't. That's ridiculous. Second, let's just all around buff the bolt pistol on all targets, headshots, whatever, so that it does more damage than the revolver. That doesn't mean it has to really clear all the breakpoints ever. The revolver is already clearing most of the breakpoints you care about, but the bolt pistol should too. And it should also have more forgiving body shot damage. This is considering the fact that it's already weaker than the revolver with lower penetration, as in no penetration, and is way more sluggish to use. So it's balanced already by those factors. All right, that's enough of me rambling about balance. With that, I will call it a wrap. It's certainly been a while since I've played or done anything for Darktide, but it was a lot of fun. And I do have to say, I worked pretty hard to get this out quickly, but maintained my usual thoroughness, which is why I chose a gun instead of a melee weapon, because let's be honest, guns are a lot less complicated, and I figured the actual workload would be smaller, and I was mostly right. Plus, bolt weapons are cool, and I've always wanted to play with the bolt pistol. So overall, I think they did a good job on the bolt pistol. It feels right, it sounds right, but it doesn't shoot right. It's not hitting the breakpoints it needs to be hitting. I hope you all have a lovely week. Thanks so much for visiting, and bye-bye.
We need no longer buy about some trapper.